Welcome back to Secrets Behind the Stars, the corner of the internet where the gloss of fame is gently polished away so the real heartbeat beneath can be heard. Today is not just another recap of a love story gone off script. Today we are walking through the storm with a man whose poise has long been mistaken for armor. We are standing beside him as he admits what he never wanted to say in public, tracing the outline of a future he was ready to claim and the moment it all burned to cinders. Before we step into the heavy air of heartbreak, resilience, and the unforgiving mathematics of modern love, take a second to join our community. Subscribe, tap the bell, and if you believe in intimate, carefully crafted storytelling, consider becoming a member. Your support keeps this room warm when the stories run cold. Now, let us turn to Gökberk Yıldırım. For years, the image of Gökberk has felt immutable, almost carved from stone. Impossibly handsome, effortlessly magnetic, and yet guarded to the point of myth, he moved through Turkish show business with that calm, inscrutable gaze that cameras could never quite puncture. He knew the pact fame demands better than most: guard the soul, and the soul stays intact. But sometimes life refuses to honor the pact. In the last few days, something cracked. The marble gave way to living, bleeding skin. And in a voice that sounded less like a PR communique and more like a confession at the edge of a cliff, he allowed us into the chamber he has kept locked the longest. He spoke, without filters, about the collapse of his relationship with Semra Arda. This was not the usual request for privacy. It was a man describing a dream he had built plank by plank in the moment he realized the house had no foundation. To understand the drop, you have to see the height. About 5 months ago, the fortress walls around his heart seemed to lower a drawbridge. Semra Arda crossed it. From the outside, their connection felt deceptively simple, even inevitable. Two driven, successful, overbooked lives finding a quiet choreography in the margins of chaos. The chemistry did not just register in photos, it radiated like a stove in winter. It seemed to everyone watching that this was not a fling destined to be eaten by paparazzi flash. This looked like a beginning. The constellation was bright. The pairing felt golden. But life is a ruthless writer. And the rumor of fissures that once hovered at the edges amplified into an undeniable fact: the relationship is over. And what remains is not just debris but an ache that sounds like thunder when he speaks it aloud. What turns a breakup into a Greek tragedy is not the end itself, but the weight one person placed on the hope. In a moment of disarming candor, Gökberk admitted he was not simply dating. He was building a life. Marriage had moved in his mind from a misty notion to a mapped plan. You could almost feel him designing the ring in silence, replaying a proposal he wanted to be perfect, rehearsing the steadiness of his voice when he would ask her to tether futures. He had decided to stake his faith on one person, to stop touching the water with his toes and finally dive headfirst. And here is the cruelty that chokes a room to stillness. Trust offered fully can turn into a weapon when met with anything less than equal devotion. He went further, into a room even fewer men in his position are willing to reveal. Fatherhood. He shared that with Semra he had named his most secret longing. At a moment when his career is a ladder that seems to have no top, with fans who would show up for him in any city at any hour, the dream he protected most was quieter than applause. He wanted a family. He pictured small feet running down a hallway, sleepy voices in the morning, the quiet dignity of a table that always has a seat for him when he comes home. And he saw Semra in that image not as a placeholder, but as the mother of those future children. That is the kind of confession that relies entirely on trust. Witnesses to that admission recall the slightest tremor in his voice, not theatrical but human, the sound of a hope being squeezed too hard. It is this part, more than any other, that has rallied people to him in fierce solidarity. Fans do not just support him now, they want to shield him. Let us take a breath together, Secrets Behind the Stars family. It is rare to hear a man who lives beneath a spotlight speak without camouflage about wanting to be a husband and a father, only to be forced to say it did not end the way it was supposed to. Does this level of honesty make him stronger in your eyes, or does it leave him too exposed for an industry that devours vulnerability? And which familiar face from his circle would you like to see keeping him company as he heals? A good friend or an old co-star who knows the language of his silences? Tell us below. If our work matters to you, press like and consider joining us for deeper dives and early access. The grief sharpens into a blade when he talks about the sacrifices he made. He admits he stood between skepticism and the woman he loved, choosing her when people with his last name asked him to be cautious. He argued for the relationship when whispers came from people who have known him since childhood. There is a specific solitude in realizing your family might have sensed something you could not bear to look at. He acted as a buffer, as a shield, and as a bridge, often at the same time. And when the bridge burned, he discovered that he was the only one left on the ashes. The wound here is not only heartbreak. It is humiliation. It is the feeling of having fought a campaign for a person who, in his telling, retreated when the field filled with smoke. From his account, the crack was not a slow erosion but a sudden fault line that split open overnight. He draws a clean line around the moment when distance entered the frame. As soon as Semra returned to her usual environment, the atmosphere shifted. Not in degrees, but in an abrupt drop that felt like a slap of winter air after summer. The affection that had filled private rooms evaporated, replaced with a kind of chill only people who have loved enough to recognize it can describe. It was as though he was laying down tiles for a home while she auditioned for a different role in a different story. That gap between how hard he loved and how lightly he felt loved back is the tremor that became an earthquake in his chest. He is not simply mourning the loss of a partner. He is mourning the version of himself who believed they were holding the same map. In the wake of that realization, he has become resolute. There is no cautious language. There is no maybe later. He is clear that he cannot forgive, not now, not later, perhaps not ever. He insists that refusal is not petty. It is a boundary set for survival. The tenderness he offered deserved a safer room than it was given. To take it back into a house that let it shatter would be to refuse to learn the lesson pain teaches. He says he is closing the garden gate and turning the key. He is not glamorizing the ache. He is simply declining to minimize it. Accepting pain is one thing, he says. Accepting disrespect is another. What does this mean for the artist we watch when the cameras roll and the lights burn hot? Insiders already speculate that this personal earthquake will mark a pivot in the way he works. There is an old truth among actors and directors alike: when an artist has survived the wreck, the work deepens. Gökberk is not returning to set as the version of himself who still believed in easy endings. He is stepping onto the floor as a man who has seen the bottom and lived to climb out. Producers who have watched him closely expect performances darkened by understanding, lit by an authenticity you cannot teach in a classroom. The grief is not a prop, it is a palette. The roles that require a soul with fracture lines may find their sharpest interpreter in him now. The boy who fed on fairy tales has left the room. The man who recognizes that joy and sorrow drink from the same well is the one who will meet his mark. And yet, in all of this, he is not alone on the sidewalk where plans come to die. The public heart has a way of recognizing real pain. The messages that have flooded his team are not just lines of comfort. They are an echoing beat, people saying we see you, keep breathing. He is bruised, yes, but upright. He is counting his breaths like steps, taking them one at a time, building days that look different from the ones he had scheduled in his mind. This is not a final chapter. It is the end of an innocence he will never revisit and the beginning of a season he did not ask for but will learn to inhabit. As for Semra Arda, the narrative here is complicated, as it always is when two people tangle lives and then pull apart. Gökberk is careful with his words but not with his hurt. He does not villainize, yet he does not sanitize. He describes a mismatch of energy, an unraveling accelerated by distance, and a realization that the rhythm that felt shared in private suddenly fell out of time when other rooms reclaimed her. Those close to both of them speak in low tones about how relentless schedules can distort the intimacy they create in quiet corners. But to him, schedules are not an absolution, they are a context. The core, he says, is that love exchanged unevenly can still break you evenly. What stays with you after hearing him is not just sorrow but a steely clarity. He believed in the promise of building a family. He trusted a woman he loved with that promise. He argued for them when it would have been easier to listen to his blood. He poured his readiness into something he thought would be a home and watched the floor open. In response, he is claiming the only ground left that does not wobble. Boundaries. Closure. A refusal to reopen the door to a room that hurt him this deeply. The industry will watch what happens next, and so will we. Set life will resume, scripts will arrive, call times will announce dawn when the city is asleep, and his talent will be asked to carry whatever the day demands. But the instrument has changed. You cannot unlive sorrow. You can only decide where to put it. If history is any guide, the work will take on an element of gravity that cannot be faked. Scenes will break open because the man at the center knows what fracture feels like, down to the way a breath shortens when you are trying not to cry. That is not a thing you can pretend. That is a thing you can only have when life has forced it on you. Before we close, we want to turn the microphone to you. Can true love survive this kind of breach, or does the fragility of trust make a return impossible once the glass has cracked? Whose presence would you hope to see near him now? Someone who brings laughter back to rooms where silence has grown too loud, or a colleague who understands that sometimes healing is a quiet evening with no questions asked? Tell us in the comments. And if this story reached you, share it with someone who believes in the power of hearing a truth told with dignity. Like, subscribe, and take a look at the join option if you want to stand with us as we continue to tell the hard stories gently. From this vantage point, the path ahead looks unfamiliar, but not empty. We expect to see a different current running beneath his roles, a depth drawn not from technique but from living. We expect a steadier man, not because he feels less, but because he knows exactly what he cannot accept again. And as for the boy who once held fairy tales close, do not mistake his departure for bitterness. It is simply the graduation that comes when experience demands a new vocabulary for hope. He still believes in warmth, in quiet rooms full of family voices, in love that holds its promises. He has just learned he must protect those dreams with stronger doors. To everyone listening, protect your hearts but do not let them calcify. If we learn anything from the way Gökberk Yıldırım is walking through this, it is that vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It is the currency that allows two people to build a life. Offered to the wrong hands, it wounds. Offered to the right hands, it shelters. We will be here to witness what the next chapter brings, and we hope you will be here alongside us. Thank you for spending this time with Secrets Behind the Stars. If this account moved you, pass it along, press like so the story finds others who need it, subscribe so you never miss what comes next, and consider joining if you want to help us keep the lights on while we keep telling the truth. Until the next episode, take care of your hearts, and may the stories you live be kinder than the ones you leave behind.